Here we go, HONOS Superbike Race 1 from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Bobby Fong is down! With the white flag flying for Cameron Beaubier, it's Zanetti who's trying to get himself onto the podium. So in his first race of the weekend, throws the wheel in the air and will take the checkered flag for his 14th win of the season in HONOS Superbike. And a tenacious Tony Elias comes across the line. He'll finish in second spot. And Lorenzo Zanetti, another podium, his fourth in 4 races. The final race day of the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship for 2020 is here. From WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in Monterey, California, it's the Geico Motorcycle MotoAmerica Superbike Speed Fest at Monterey. Hello everyone and welcome to HONOS Superbike race number 1 of 2 for the day. I'm Greg White, standing alongside 2-time AMA champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, when we look back at this season, even though we have 2 races to go today, we're really talking about Cameron Beaubier and his spectacular accomplishments. Yeah,
he's set a lot of records, obviously, Greg, and he's chasing some wins today that are going to put him even more into the record books.
For Cameron Beaubier, he is off to Moto2 for next season, but let's take a look at the 6 seasons that he's had here in MotoAmerica in the Superbike class. Right now, Jason, he's got 14 wins. He's going for 16. He's trying to tie Josh Hayes' all-time record, but those 14 wins are the highest. 25 points to set a new MotoAmerica single-season record in terms of points scored. It's pretty astonishing what Cameron Beaubier has been able to do. And Jason, he's been able to do that by breaking track records at every single racetrack we've been to, either the outright lap record or the race record in the, during the actual race itself. So we've been in 9 racetracks, well, really 8, I guess, because we went to Road America twice. But he's broken the record in the race at every racetrack we've been to, with the exception of Indy.
So with him being gone next year, there's a lot of guys in the paddock that have some work to do next year to see if they can come after some of these records that Cam has set in his final season with us.
Here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, it's been very weird this morning. It's been what you would think it would be if you're from this part of the country. It's been misty, and there's a little bit of moisture on the racetrack. So we're going to get down to the 3rd member of our broadcast team, Hannah Lopa, who's going to fill us in. Hannah, it's been an absolute wild morning so far, hasn't it?
Greg, you're 100% right. We've seen some huge condition changes all morning long. Originally, the first warm-up session for our Superbike class was deemed dry, despite some of the mist. Now, because it's sprinkling right now a little bit still, the rules allow a wet practice for our riders in order for them to scope out the track conditions. So leading up to right now them being on the grid, they had a 10-minute warm-up session to check it out. I've been told by race officials that this has been declared a wet race. Now what that means as far as tires go, I talked to our friends at Dunlop. They said the tire choice is up to the teams. You'll see some of the guys behind me, they originally for that warm-up went out on those rain tires with the grooves. They are changing to slicks. They've got warmers on. Unfortunately, because it's been declared a wet race, that means they have to run it flag to flag no matter what happens. So they're really taking a big gamble on tires here. It could definitely affect the results. Let's get over to Jamie with more.
Well, Hannah, that warm-up session was even more important for some of the riders who had trouble yesterday. 2 in particular that were battling for a podium position. I'll start with the number 50 of Bobby Fong. He went down in the battle with Jake Gagne. While he was very frustrated with himself yesterday, this morning he has recentered his focus. He said the bike is fixed. They know it's fast. They know he has something he can fight with, and he is ready for that battle today. Going to Jake Gagne himself, he had a fuel issue that was developing overnight. The team did switch out the fuel pump. They did an in and out lap this morning just to make sure everything was working right. They know that they've got a bike underneath them, and so they are ready for the race.
All right, thanks, Jamie Howe. So very interesting day in terms of what's going on with each rider as well as these conditions, Jason, because as we take a look at Bobby Fong, he's thinking, what do I do in these crazy conditions? More on that in a second as we take a look at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. 2.3 miles, 7 left-hand corners, a dirt tracker's dream. Up and down elevation, Jason. When you get to that corkscrew, it's the iconic corner that defines this racetrack. But we're more interested in where are the places you want to race, people, the Cardo track hotspots.
Yeah, and of course, with the conditions the way they are, these spots are going to be really important this morning coming down into turn 2. This is the one corner that they didn't actually get to go out and ride on just now as they were coming through pit lane in that 5-minute warm-up session. Turn 5 will be another spot that we will be looking at for some passing as riders come out of turn 4 and get better drives and getting used to these conditions. Up to turn 6. Out of turn 6, you're going to go up a great big steep hill up to that corkscrew that we hear so much about. When you get up here to the corkscrew, Greg, we saw a couple little incidents this morning. We saw Kyle Wyman unfortunately tip off there in our morning session. A session that was just a little bit dewy, a little bit wet, and up top on that hill, it was a lot more wet than it was down even on the flatter parts. Eventually, we're going to end up here in turn 11. Want to get a good drive out of here on your way down that straightaway.
Now in this Cardo track hot spots, you can see the sun is shining, but with these misty conditions, it's been kind of on and off. With it declared a wet race, it is up to the riders to decide what tire combination they're going to go with. Are we going to see full wet tires? Or are we going to see full Dunlop slicks? It's going to be very interesting when we come back.
Today's Superbike coverage is sponsored by Geico Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance. And by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Robbie Floyd and Roger Hayden here with you for our MotoAmerica Live Plus viewers. We get ready for our first race of 2 today. Roger, you went out there just a second ago. It is actually starting to decrease a little bit. When I went out about 45 minutes ago, I could feel the mist, but it is starting to calm down.
Yeah, it looks like it's definitely starting to calm down a little bit, but you know, it can come and go here. You just never know, and these are the trickiest conditions. You see everybody looking around on the grid. Nobody knows exactly what to do, but it's not wet enough, you know, right now for the rain tires because they're going to get so hot. There's no way they would last 18 laps, and usually when it starts to dry, it will dry really quick. And you know, these are the trickiest. These are the worst conditions. These are the conditions that nobody likes. Really, they don't like the half wet, the half dry,
the in between, right?
Yeah. So
I saw somebody dialing in. I could have swore it was Jake Gagne's bike. I mean, they're sitting there dialing in on those springs. They're trying to, you know, do a bike setup change at the last second.
Yeah, I'm sure they're probably doing a little bit of a mixture between a rain setup and a normal setup. You know, when it's raining,
soften it up a little bit.
They soften it up a little bit. You see Jake Gagne right there with the soft front tire for sure. So he's definitely going softs, and I can imagine everybody's going too. But you never know. There could be somebody on the back of the grid who can take a chance. Throw, you know what I mean? Like throw some rain tires at it and just hope that the mist comes in.
Maybe one of the stock 1,000 guys
or something. Yeah, if you have nothing to lose, why not? Just try it out and
just a set of tires, right?
Well, just hope that it like a really heavy mist comes in, but I don't think it will, and we'll see. It's going to be whoever can get the most confidence early, get the heat in the tires, and whoever feels more comfortable early on in the race and not make any mistakes. Also, when the tracks like this, this weekend we see a lot of guys going over the paint in different corners. The paint is going to be
This should be good
slick
paint, though. There's different kinds of paint throughout there. This should be as good as it gets, right? Because they have so many international events
here.
It
is, but it still can be, you know, in some places a little bit slick when you're at max lean angle.
Now, when I was talking to Josh Hayes a moment ago, he said Nick Canepa might be the one to look for. Do you think that could be a case because he has so varied? I mean, I know he does a lot of endurance racing and stuff, or do you think just because that's not the bike that he's typically used to riding, I think that could be a factor for him?
I think definitely has this could be conditions that he's good in, and actually a lot of them. These kind of conditions kind of, to be honest with you, kind of level out the playing field. Mm-hmm. You know, but before this race, we would have said, you know, oh yeah, Cam Beaubier is going to win this one. Well, here, heck, you don't know. This is going to be a race that we haven't seen before, and it's going to be interesting.
Well, the Kyle Wyman horsepower is what clipped Nick Canepa on that last lap, and he couldn't battle that yesterday. Horsepower in wetter conditions isn't such the factor. You almost don't want quite as much. You almost want to dial it down. So even though we know he's on a stock motor, being Kyle Wyman, that may actually be in his favor today.
Yeah, just like you talked about the rain setup, softening the suspension. There's also rain maps where you take a little bit of the power away, but you know, I'm not really sure. It's just not wet enough. And with all these bikes out there, if it's starting to dry just a little bit, it will dry really quick.
Cameron Beaubier won yesterday by 10 seconds, had an even larger lead over Tony Elias. Will we see more of Cameron Beaubier? Do you expect him to go out there and just keep on doing what he's doing?
I do. I expect him to. He's fast in all conditions, but it's going to be interesting. We haven't seen these conditions all weekend.
There's our shot, maybe. Let's take a look and see. Is it going to be Max Flinders with some wets? Nope, it looks like he's got the slicks on. We're going to find out what all they do. They're on Dunlops either way. Let's get ready for our first race of the day up to.
Today's Superbike race coverage is sponsored by HONOS, the apparel brand that promotes talent within the adrenaline sports realm.
Welcome back to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Looking at that picture, everything kind of looks dry there, Jason. But here's the starting grid as Cameron Beaubier was on pole, 1.4 seconds ahead of Gagne and Lorenzo Zanetti.
Second row, Bobby Fong, Tony Elias, our podium finisher from yesterday, and Kyle Wyman, who had to put that bike back together in a hurry this morning. Him and his team down there, Nico Canepa, Josh Herron, and Jason Uribe. Good run for Jason Uribe yesterday in row. He's going to start from row 3. Gilbert Peterson and David Anthony, who we hear might have an electrical problem on pit lane, is David Anthony. Then Corey Alexander, Max Flinders, Travis Wyman, Dumas, DeBrino, and Danilo Lewis. Back to row 7, we got Coffey, Vertorico, and Sebastian Ferreira.
So interesting conditions for the start of this HONOS Superbike race number 2 of the weekend, number 1 of the day, as it's been declared a wet race. The question, Jason, is what tires are on the bikes?
Slicks. Got to be on slicks, I think, Greg, for this race. You know, you can see these guys tiptoeing right now, but unless it really starts to rain, and of course, we're not outside. I'm not outside. So coming in about 30 minutes ago, you can see it even coming down the hill right now. It's drying all down that hill. But 30 minutes ago, I would have said rains for sure. Hannah, what you got?
Yeah, so if you're just joining us, it has been officially declared a wet race, which means they run flag to flag. There will be no stopping to change tires or anything. The riders are making a gamble in their tire choice. I walked all the way down the grid. There were warmers on every single bike, which means every rider is on slick tires. So if the conditions change and the rain picks up a little bit, they will not be able to stop to change tires throughout this race.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, you know, these guys will still put warmers on still anyways, just to make sure that they got some heat in the tires for these opening laps. But I think that, Hannah, what you see for sure is that a lot of these guys are going to be on slicks. They realize what the weather is going to do here. It's definitely going to dry the track up, especially the more bikes you have going around. So it looks like most of the field will be on slicks as we get ready to roll here.
Yeah, but the key on this one is going to be able to make it the first couple of laps and let this race sort itself out. Who's going to be aggressive and try to get to the front and take most of the risk? Race number 2, HONOS Superbike. You can see Tony Elias click his M4X Star Suzuki into gear. So we're getting ready to roll. When those lights go off, it's game on for race number 2. And away we go. Looks like Zanetti on the 87 got a good launch. Bobby Fong as well from the second row.
Tony Elias also.
Beaubier leading us into turn number 1. Beaubier taking all the risk on a track that is a question mark at the moment. You can see not massively aggressive lean angles as we normally see when the sun's shining.
It's not going to take long, though, Greg, because the track's mostly dry, especially down here. So you kind of want to charge this beginning section because you see the track is dry. It's going to put some heat in the tires now as they come up through turn 5 and, more importantly, turn 6. That's where you're going to have to be a little bit more careful. It could be a little bit more damp up there. But, oh, we have a bike off in the background. That looks like a BMW. And I'm trying to see who that might be.
Might be Coffey.
It could be Coffey. It is. It's Jeremy Coffey down in turn 4. So that bike tumbled pretty hard, and we're looking here. Jeremy is up, which is good.
Yeah, looks like he took a bit of a dinger. So Jeremy Coffey in the gravel trap. He's going to be out of this one, and he is frustrated.
Yeah, that's going to be frustrating for Jeremy there.
Yeah, that looked like either a brake or a clutch reservoir.
Yeah, he's on the paint, though, Greg. You know, when it's wet, you got to be careful. You can't get out on that paint, especially at the beginning of the race, and because nobody will have been ridden out there. So he got out on the paint and tried to tip it in like you normally would in the dry and just got caught out by that.
Well, unfortunately for Coffey, he's out of this one. And chances of him getting that bike ready to go by our afternoon race probably pretty slim. We have a 1-bike rule in MotoAmerica, so riders allowed to have 1 bike. If Jeremy Coffey has a second bike, he'll have to retech that motorcycle. So up front we go. Cameron Beaubier is going to lead us across the line. Zanetti started to eke away from Jake Gagne. Gagne now starting to put a lap together, link these corners. Yeah, Beaubier is not getting away from Zanetti as we've seen, and that would really show you that they're just kind of eking away. I mean, first full lap, Jason, Cameron Beaubier qualified at a 1:23. He just clicked off a 1:34.8.
Yeah, but he's going to just continue to stretch that out, Greg, because it's basically dry. When you're doing 34s already, it's telling me that the track is in pretty good condition. How about this guy? Cam Peterson right now on that Altus Superstock 1000 running in 4th place. This is a guy that obviously felt really comfortable in these conditions, and we've seen Superstock riders like Matthew Skultz in the past win in kind of iffy conditions. As you see up there, Jake Gagne has got Bizanetti as they go into turn 6. You can see they're going to be a little bit more careful in and through the middle of turn 6. We saw a couple of our Liqui Moly riders go down this morning in that turn when that mist was a little bit heavier. Now they're going up here into the corkscrew. Gagne has got himself up into that podium spot. It was second, actually, behind his teammate. And you can see, Greg, you can see how it's dry, a little bit more dry. Now, the important thing is just to make sure that you maintain the heat, get the heat in the tires, and it stays that way coming down through these turns 9 and turns 10. The other thing that helps, those turns are very banked, especially turn 10. It's going to allow you to get that heat in the tire.
So for Jake Gagne and his Monster Energy Attack Performance Yamaha, he had issues yesterday. And as Jamie talked about earlier, it was a starvation of fuel delivery that the data was telling the team. So amongst a few other things, they changed out that fuel pump. And obviously Jake Gagne's bike running strong right now. First flying lap for Cameron Beaubier, a 29. So yeah, Jay, 5 seconds quicker, but still,
yeah,
6 seconds off their quad. Yeah, exactly. So they're working their way into it.
You can see these guys are running out a little bit. You can see Gagne got back onto the track from that painted section a little bit late. You saw how much the bike moved around on him there. And the other interesting thing here will be the settings. Generally, you're going to go a lot softer in conditions like this where you're not going to be pushing the bike quite as much. But that said, you're going to see these guys probably get down into the 25s, I would assume, by the end of this race fairly easily, especially if it continues to dry up the way it is. So look at Cam Peterson. He's still trying to close back up on this battle for second and third, and he's doing a really nice job right now. He's actually the second split there. Cam took 4/10 out of Zanetti. Down through the corkscrew, you can definitely tell, Greg, there's some moisture at the top of the hill coming down. And then from here down, it looks pretty good. But getting back to my point, you'll put some softer settings into the bike for the rainy conditions because you're not going to be able to put the amount of load into the motorcycle that you would as if it was dry. Saw a lot of guys, a lot of crew chiefs out there just now turning knobs to stiffen things back up a little bit.
So Cam Peterson, Altus Motorsports, stock 1000 spec motorcycle. Same motorcycle as Bobby Fong and Tony Elias are out on, but with a lot less modifications allowed in the stock 1000 class. There's Tony Elias, the podium yesterday for the Spaniard. His future up in the air in MotoAmerica competition. We know that Suzuki sent out a thank you to Tony Elias for his winning style in MotoAmerica. Tony Elias, 32 wins to his credit. And how about this guy, Nick Canepa, filling in for the injured Matthew Skultz on the Westby Racing Yamaha R1. And Jamie has more on Nick.
Well, the reason Westby Racing made the decision to bring him out is because they still had some things they wanted to try and they wanted to work through their program as they get ready for the 2021 season. This morning, they made some pretty substantial changes from the first race yesterday, particularly with the geometry of the bike and then the traction control settings. They didn't get to try those this morning, though, because the track conditions were what they were. But now that it's dried off a little bit, crew chief Ed Sullivan said they went ahead, they just stuck with it. The whole reason they're here is to test these sorts of things. So that's what they have. It's a little bit of an unknown for the race, but they're going to learn no matter what.
Yeah, to add to that, Jason, in talking to Nick Canepa, what he told me was when you look at Matthew Skultz and the way he rides the bike, he's a tall rider. He likes to sit back, in the back of the motorcycle, a lot more than Canepa. Canepa likes to be connected to the tank, so he's much more forward on the bike, and that affects the settings that Skultz uses on the front end of the motorcycle, as opposed to Canepa wants a little bit more on the front because he loads the front end more.
Yeah, and it's just a rider preference type of thing, and I'll tell you, before this race started, I did talk to Chuck Giacchetto, and obviously we're all wishing Matthew the absolute best. He was very excited how Matthew was going the last 3 or 4 rounds, and but he did say, he's like, I said, how's Nico doing? You know, I've known Nick a little bit from when he rode in World Superbike even back in the day, and he's like, oh, he's so professional and it's so easy. But he's been, like we said yesterday, he's been on 3 different brands of tires this year, so he's had a lot to get used to even on this weekend. But Greg, with his World Endurance experience, had this race stayed the track stayed wet but looked like it was going to dry. He was my pick for a podium this morning because he would be used to these conditions, having ridden that stuff in World Endurance. And how about Cam Peterson? He is now close to the back of Zanetti and Gagne. Zanetti has reeled Gagne back in himself, but now Cam Peterson is right in the shop window for a podium.
Unbelievable what we've been able to see this season in MotoAmerica, watching Stock 1000. If you have the MotoAmerica Live Plus app, it's something you can view all season long during the off season. But Cam Peterson has got to be a candidate for the seat that Cameron Beaubier occupies for these last 2 races, as he's out front 5.7. As Beaubier leaves MotoAmerica to go to Moto2 and exits that spot, a lot of people are talking about the 45 of Cameron Peterson, and will he get that spot on the Monster Energy Attack Performance Yamaha? Or what about the spot Tony Elias is vacating at the M4X Star Suzuki camp? Cam Peterson's future very bright in MotoAmerica, and the story of Cam Peterson is incredible.
It really is. And the thing about Cam is we remember him being on the deck a lot in the past, and just, you know, he was on some different types of teams, maybe not the best equipment, maybe not the best team. And as a young rider, you always feel like you're going to be the guy that can make up the difference, and you can do things. As Zanetti now has a look up under Gagne in turn 5 and makes that pass stick on that Ducati. Getting back to Cam, the thing is, this year, not only has he just matured as a rider, but he's learned how to win. He's learned how to plan his races. He's learned how to attack differently. Even from the first practices on Friday mornings, he comes out quick, gets to his setups as quickly as he needs. Just a lot more intelligence, and you're going to see him try to make a move here on his good friend Jake Gagne very, very shortly if things go the way they do. That last lap by, Cam was only 0.9 of a second off the race leader.
Cam Peterson trying to go after the Superbike of Jake Gagne on a Stock 1000 machine. Jason, this racetrack is a great place to do it. The section we're getting into right now, you're going to see that Superbike squared away from that Stock 1000 machine, but it's such a rider's racetrack here.
Yeah, there's no question, and there's going to be places where Cameron Peterson is going to be able to close up on the likes of Jake Gagne and Zanetti, but he's not going to be able to get close enough to them in these braking zones. You can see how much they pulled away from him there. Now he'll be able to reel them back in through the middle of some of these corners with some of the roll speed that he's carrying on that Superstock 1000 motorcycle, but it's going to make it very, very difficult for him to pass.
The battle for second place, Gagne had it, was pulling away from Zanetti, and Zanetti has started to get comfortable with these conditions as Gagne is starting to fall victim. You can see that Gagne's bike, just the rear end, spinning up as he's trying to search for some grip from that rear Dunlop. Zanetti is looking strong in second place, 7 seconds behind our leader, Cam Beaubier, Hannah.
Greg, you mentioned the obstacles that Nico Canepa was facing with tires. Zanetti kind of has the same thing. He said he's never ridden in the wet on these tires, so he wasn't quite sure what to expect. Fortunately, right now for everyone, that mist is holding off. It seems to be dry conditions. As far as setup, the really only thing they changed was balance. They wanted better suspension for corner exit. He said the podium yesterday was a bit unexpected, but he was super happy with his performance today. He was just hoping to be in the fight, and right now he's doing just that.
And there's going to be fights all the way around the racetrack as you have Cam Peterson, the 45, going after Jake Gagne. But Jason, off in the distance, here comes the 24 of Tony Elias, and he's bringing Canepa with him.
Yeah, well, when you saw that last lap, Zanetti was actually starting to pull away from these guys, but he got out wide in turn 6 and had to run up on the paint, so he was very cautious on the exit of 6, and it allowed Gagne and Cam Peterson to close back up. The bike right now that we got to really pay attention to is that 24. Tony Elias is on the move and moving forward. You can see he's opened up just a little bit of a gap now on Nick Canepa back there running 6. Tony Elias is on the move now. I also feel that Cam Peterson has pace to go by or go away from this group, but he just doesn't have the power down these straightaways to put himself in a position to pass at the end of them right now.
What is good for a guy like Lorenzo Zanetti coming here to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, a track that has been homologated for World Superbike and in the past MotoGP, is that we do have the FIM homologated paint that's on the edge of the racetrack. That paint comes with a little bit of aggregate, a little bit of grip, if you will, and you can see that even when it's a little misty. Zanetti, who goes underneath the 17 of Sam Verterico early on in this race, is Verterico trying to find some confidence in this race, is that at least he has the ability to get out there on that paint. Some of the racetracks we go to that are not FIM homologated, they have kind of normal paint on them, and it gets a little sketchy getting out there on that paint.
Yeah, you still really don't want to get on it anyways. I mean, especially when you're on slicks, because there could be some water that has stood there. And you can see Bobby Fong back here right now. He's in 11th. He's following the likes of Michael Gilbert and Daniel Lewis, who's running 9th right now. Really nice run for Daniel Lewis. You can see just behind them, look like DeBrino, maybe Travis Wyman back there as well. So Bobby Fong maybe not feeling as good in these conditions as one would have thought, and just struggling a little bit right now in 10th spot. As we get back to that battle for second, Tony Elias is now on the back of that group.
So Cam Peterson, who had some ideas about how to get around Jake Gagne. We look at that full-blown Superbike versus stock 1000 battle. All of a sudden, Cam Peterson has got to start thinking about Tony Elias, Jamie.
It's really a David versus Goliath story when you think about the different machinery out there. And Melissa Paris, the crew chief for Cameron Peterson, just told me, listen, I don't have all of the different components to play with. We couldn't second guess ourselves when we saw these conditions. We don't have a spare shock. We don't have all of the electronics. Cam Peterson has the exact same setup he ran on the bike yesterday. He's so hungry for a podium finish. His goal was a top 5, but when he saw the conditions this morning, he said, I can do this. I can make it onto the top 3, and that's why you see him pushing.
Yeah, and you know what? As it turns right now, Jason, it's drying out. So that window is closing for Cam Peterson as now Tony Elias has gone by him.
Yeah, but you gotta see what this kid's been doing all year long, and I think that what Jamie just said there is exactly right. I'm sure Melissa, too, this morning, Melissa Paris, that is, was probably smiling when she saw the rain out, because she knows she's got a rider with as much talent as Cam has, that he could have probably put this bike on the podium in a wet conditioned race. So, but right now, as we kind of predicted, the lap times now, Greg, have got down into those 25s, 25.3, but all of these next group of riders, 25.6, 25.8, 25.8 for Tony Elias. Cam Peterson still very impressive, 26.4, but now with the track drying out, you will definitely see the difference between these Superbikes and that Superstock Spec 1000.
23s yesterday for Cameron Beaubier before he dropped into the 26s. I was curious about Cam Beaubier yesterday and asked him why he dropped into the 26s late in the race. His hair moved around in his helmet and started to cover his eyes, Cam Beaubier.
Well,
so we don't think that's going to happen. I told him I'd shave his head before we get here today, but he said no.
Let's make sure it's shaved before next year, and he's over there battling with all those world guys. So yeah, that's pretty funny. Now we're going to see here if Tony Elias has anything for these two in front of him, Greg, if he's going to be able to make a pass on Gagne and get himself up on that podium.
Tony Elias looking strong in 4th place. Now getting the measure of Jake Gagne. So Gagne into the final and out of the final corner, trying to get good acceleration, and Gagne's bike's moving around, but I'll tell you what, Hannah, Tony Elias's motorcycle is looking planted right now.
Well, we've reached the halfway point of this race, and Tony's main goal was to be better and more competitive at the beginning of the race. He said this has kind of been the common theme for him all season. He's slow to start, but we know he loves when that fuel load drops off, when the tires go off, and he knows he can fight to the end of the race. So it was just a matter of setting up the bike for this track specifically and to make it a little bit taller so that he could be more competitive this first half.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is that we've seen this a lot from Tony over the years, where when the tire wear gets to be what we consider to be a little bit worse and that fuel load goes down, Tony just seems to shine and go to the front. The hardest part this year is just seeing how much he has struggled at the beginning of the races. And you look at Cameron Beaubier right now, almost 11 seconds up the road from this battle for second. They've lost touch with one guy, but Tony was losing touch to the rest of the field also as the year goes, and here he goes underneath Zanetti as they go up into the corkscrew. He gets right down to that apex, typical Tony Elias style, takes that pass for third, but now, Greg, he's doing what we've seen him do in the past. The only problem is that Cameron's 11 seconds out.
Yes, he was brought up earlier in the broadcast. If you're just joining us, we were at inclement weather probably 20 minutes before this race. The track was wet, it was misting out, and riders got some time to sort out a wet weather setup, and maybe some of these teams weren't convinced it was going to dry out completely. And Jason, you talked about maybe the suspension is a little soft, and that might be what some of these riders are suffering from, like Jake Gagne. But Tony Elias got it right. All of his experience. The 37-year-old Spaniard goes up the inside, Jay.
Yeah, you can see Gagne opened up the top of the corkscrew a little bit, and Tony just straight lined it for the apex of that corner, is able to make that pass pretty easily. Now Zanetti has opened up a little bit of a gap on these guys. Wasn't that his lap time was that much better, but in this first sector of this lap, he has definitely put the hammer down. He had these guys by almost 0.3 of a second in the first sector there, so they're going to have to keep grinding away to get back up to the back of Zanetti. And in the meantime, Cam Peterson does the fastest lap of the race for himself at a 25.909 that last time through. So he's not done either. He's still trying to get up on the back. That podium is still right in front of the number 45.
Good job by Cam Peterson to keep these riders in tow. Just in case anything happens, he could find himself on the stock 1000 spec Altus Motorsports machine. Standing on that podium, the winner of our Superbike Cup Challenge, which was all the competitors in the stock 1000 class who competed in the HONOS Superbike class this year were eligible for it. And for Cameron Peterson, he won that yesterday, and he gets to take home $25,000. Cameron Beaubier just sets the fastest lap of the race. He is now in the 24s, Jay. Yeah. 124.987.
Well, 23s we know are comfortable for him. 24.9 is still just kind of cruising for Cam, but the conditions have just gotten that much better. You can see him just barely get out of the paint, so he's still not even using up all the racetrack that I think that he feels like he could probably use. Still being a little bit cautious and smart as far as staying off of some of that paint for now. Doesn't really need it. He's looked at his board, 11-second lead. He's just looking up the road and clicking off the laps.
Is this when it seems long, Jason, with 5.5 laps to go for Cameron Beaubier? You've been in this position before in your racing careers. We get a good look through the clear face shield and Cameron Beaubier's 6D helmet, and we get to see where his eyes are looking, Jay. Are these the times when you're having fun, or you're just going, come on, let's get this race over with?
No, he's having, with as many times as this guy has won, all those feelings are just about putting your lap together. You've got trust in your bike and in your team. You're just clicking off times now. So for Cameron Beaubier, he's been in this position so long that it's not a big deal. So back to that battle for third. Here we go. Tony Elias now just starting to open up a little bit of a gap over Jake Gagne and Cam Peterson, still back there trying in tow. These guys are pretty consistent in the 25. Now Zanetti went 25.3 that last time by. That was the quickest lap of his race. So he's been able to open up almost 2 seconds on Tony Elias and Gagne there. So you can see Zanetti just up the road. Looks like he's got a little bit more pace than does that of the 24 and the 32 bikes there behind him.
Boy, that Suzuki GSX-R 1000 of Tony Elias, that M4 X-Star Suzuki, comes off of turn 11 really quickly. Just gets on the gas and gets a good drive and gets a scoot away from the Yamaha of Gagne. So Tony Elias, who's really come on strong towards the end of this season, he didn't have a podium. He just wasn't even close, really, was Tony Elias, who's 5th in points until we got to our 11th race of the season. And then that was a 3rd place finish. And then yesterday he goes P2, looking for another step on the box to extend his podiums in MotoAmerica competition. I mentioned it before. Last ride with Suzuki, wants to come back to HONOS Superbike for 2021.
Great battle here between Michael Gilbert on the other ADR Suzuki. We saw Dave Anthony was not able to start this race, but this is a time for Michael Gilbert. The last 2 rounds here at Indianapolis and at Laguna, he's running 3 Superbike races for this team. And of course, Josh Herron. I had a great talk with Josh not long before we came on the air, and he's just continuing to try to get this BMW and make it better. Talking with him, he says, you know, yesterday we made comment that each race he goes to, he's got to kind of rebuild the bike. In other words, what he has found to work at one track really isn't applicable necessarily to the next. But he's enjoyed his year so far, and he continues to just grind it. But now he's just locked into a battle with Michael Gilbert for 8th. They're about 7 seconds behind Kyle Wyman, and they're about 5 seconds up the road from Bobby Fong.
That BMW, Scheibe Racing BMW of the number 2, Josh Herron, a 2016 model, Jason, and yesterday they have the fastest trap speeds. So the motor's extremely fast, but we know here at Laguna Seca that it's not always just about top end. It's about getting the power to the ground and how well it turns. A good look at the eyes of Josh Herron and where he's looking right at Michael Gilbert. Did I see Gilbert look behind him at some point?
Yeah, I think we saw him
earlier?
at turn 4.
We're going to have a talk with Gilbert about that.
So he doesn't do that very often, but yeah, now we get back to that battle, and it looks like it's kind of still 1.3 seconds. Tony Elias has gone a little bit quicker than Zanetti the last couple laps, even though it's only a tenth or so. And right now he's pulled in another couple of tenths in that second sector. So when you look at it, Tony's not quite done with 4 to go. He still has Zanetti in his gun sights, and again now Tony has gone fastest third split of anybody in the race in that third split, so he's gained another couple of tenths, so he's still charging after Zanetti in second place.
There's a look at Lorenzo Zanetti, the 87 rider. That motorcycle, of course, legendary at this point, in a crate just a few weeks ago, came to the U.S. directly from Ducati Corsa in Italy. The Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York entry. What's going to happen with this team next year? The possibility of running this motorcycle or even 2 riders has been rumored. Does Zanetti get a call up? Does he get to come back here? Are those seats going to be open for other riders? Tomorrow, there's going to be a Ducati track day right here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and rumor has it that the number 24 might throw a leg over this Ducati and get to go ride it at that day. A lot of people sticking around to ride that Ducati day here tomorrow. But right now, this motorcycle is all Lorenzo Zanetti. Since he got that motorcycle, since he threw a leg over the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York entry, he has not been off the podium. And Zanetti has a race win already. It's been an unbelievable performance by that team. A couple of engineers over here from Italy working on that motorcycle, and I have seen Zanetti on his cell phone talking to Italy. So right now, Lorenzo Zanetti in second place and Tony Elias in third. WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, HONOS Superbike, race number 2 of the weekend, race 1 of the day. Welcome to our FS2 viewers. We're looking at Lorenzo Zanetti, the 87, in second place with Cameron Beaubier 11 seconds adrift. This battle is for second place between Zanetti on the 87 and the M4X Star Suzuki of Tony Elias, the international battle. There's the Californian, Cameron Beaubier. With a couple laps to go in this one, it was a matter of a wet race. It was declared a wet race, but it has dried out. Cameron Beaubier about a second off the pace he was going yesterday. Here's a look at the laps Beaubier has done. You can see them getting quicker and quicker as the race wore on, as Beaubier got more confidence in his tires and in track conditions. It's been impressive from Cameron.
Yeah, it has. You can see he dipped into the 24s there on lap 12, but it's been a pretty consistent pace in the 25s. Kind of early in the race, kind of figured that would be the pace that it would take for Cameron to get away from these guys. He was just able to dip himself into the 25s probably about 5 or 6 laps earlier than everybody else, and that's what really allowed him to open up this gap that you've seen now. He's got an 11-second lead that last time by. He's got about a lap and a corner to go. This time when he comes out of turn 11, he's going to be seeing the white flag to try to come across the line again and take another really good victory.
So Cameron Beaubier takes the white flag with 1 lap to go. And this is race 1 of 2 for the day. Our other race on FS2 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That was Jason Pridmore just talking. We've had Hannah Lopa and Jamie Howe joining us on this white flag lap. Tony Elias trying to reel in Lorenzo Zanetti and put himself second on the podium. Jason, he's closed that gap.
He really has. That time by 25.3 for Tony Elias, 25.7 for Lorenzo Zanetti. So Tony has not given up on this charge in second, and he's really good, Greg, in that third sector. He pulled almost half a second on Zanetti. Right now they're just getting done with the first sector of this track, and Zanetti has really had the measure of Tony in sector 1. Now, from this point on, sector 2 and sector 3 have kind of been good sectors for Tony Elias to pull back up, and if he can get close enough, we might see something done down in the turn 11 area on this final lap. But right now, Zanetti's just got that little bit too big of a gap.
Yeah, with everybody riding really for what's going to happen for next season, including Tony Elias, who's leaving Suzuki after this day, and his future is wide open. It's like racing for a contract right now. As you look at Lorenzo Zanetti, who showed up on these shores. This is his third race weekend with us, but his second race weekend on this full-blown works spec Ducati Corsa machine. As for this guy, Cameron Beaubier, he's had it all his way. The Californian with the head nod and the run to the checkered flag, and he'll take his 15th victory of the season. The battle for second. Onto the front straight we go, and Zanetti with his head down. No problem for the Italian over the Spaniard. So it's Beaubier, Zanetti, Tony Elias, Jake Gagne will take fourth. And how about Cameron Peterson? We're waiting for the arrival of Cam Peterson as the cool down lap for Cameron Beaubier. As Peterson comes across the line, he'll take fifth place on his stock 1000 spec Altus Motorsports Suzuki GSX-R 1000. Nick Canepa also comes across the line. Really spread out race, Jason, because I think the way that this race started, lap times were slow. People were trying to figure out where was the traction. Even though it was declared a wet race, all the riders in the field starting on slick tires, but it was still damp, so they had to figure things out. So there's a look at who's going to be standing on the podium. In that order,
cool to see three different brands again on the podium here at MotoAmerica as well. Obviously, we got a Yamaha, a Ducati, and a Suzuki up there. Cam coming by, and some good battles back. But, you know, Greg, when you have a race like this that's spread out, it's generally based off of setups. Some guys might not have got back to their full dry setups on the grid compared to what they maybe thought it was going to be. So the bike's not going to feel as good to some, so that's why you get these races spread out a little bit.
So Cameron Beaubier makes his way up the hill towards the corkscrew and marching closer to tying Josh Hayes' all-time win record at 16. He's got 15. We're going to talk to Cameron Beaubier and find out from him how he thought his race went. Stay with us.
I just heard you say Monday night. Well, an exciting first race here. Well, I guess it's not too exciting for Cameron Beaubier. There were some races in the field. Kind of a runaway for Cameron Beaubier, and I said, we expect much of the same, and you said yes, and we saw much of the same out of Cameron Beaubier. Robbie Floyd with Roger Hayden, a 10-second advantage. The race was Tony Elias, so he made some really good passes going to the corkscrew, and he really wanted Zanetti. He just wasn't close enough.
Yeah, he was just pushing pretty hard, and he had to come from a ways back, so who knows if he had to, you know, use his tire to try to catch up to those guys. And once he got there to Zanetti, he was really pushing those last couple laps. And some of those passes we've seen Tony make was kind of like the Tony we've seen.
Yeah, you said that to me. You're like, that's the Tony we're used to seeing.
Making those passes into the corkscrew like that is something we haven't seen him do this year, really. So that was awesome to see, and for him to kind of catch up and charge from the back was pretty good.
So Beaubier, Zanetti, and Elias, the first podiums of the day for the HONOS Superbike. They will have another opportunity here in just a bit. Jake Gagne in fourth, Cam Peterson. Gagne didn't want to let go of Elias there for a while, but eventually Tony pulled away. But I was really, really impressed with Cam Peterson. Put him on similar equipment, he might have had a shot at a podium himself.
Definitely, if he was on similar equipment, it would have been close. I mean, you can just see when we're watching, you know, just a little bit more horsepower and stuff that the Superbikes have on the straightaways. They just can pull that gap, and then he catches them on the brakes, and then they pull it on the straightaway, and then he's having to ride so much harder. And also, when you're doing that, you're taking more chances because you're braking deeper than everybody else and all the corners. And then also with the, you know, Superbike guys have better electronics, so sometimes too can make a tire stay better throughout the race because they can spin less.
We talked about how most of this year was Bobby Fong was the faster of the two M4 X-Star Suzukis. That's not the case today. Tony Elias third, Bobby Fong in 10th. I wonder what was going on with Bobby Fong. Was he just riding too tentative? He did turn his best lap of the entire race on that last lap. I'm not sure what was happening out there with Bobby.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he had a problem. And we do know he crashed yesterday. So, and then this morning's warm-up wasn't, you know, didn't really get any laps because it was wet. So maybe a problem from the crash yesterday, or maybe he just didn't feel comfortable in the track conditions. You never know, but it was definitely not the Bobby Fong that we are used to.
Nick Canepa in 6th place, just kind of lost track of that front 3, 4, 5, and actually Cam Peterson's actually pulling him. I just have to think, and I know Josh Hayes said it's not necessarily about the setup, but I think they were probably trying things on that bike, and it didn't necessarily work too great for him, at least today.
And just being comfortable with the tires and stuff when the conditions are cold and wet like it is. It takes a while to get that confidence and, to come over here and be smart and, just try to get ready and really let it hang out for the third one.
Absolutely. And you point that out, and I did talk to him about the tires because everybody on Dunlop's here, but he runs Bridgestones, Michelin's, Pirelli's, other parts of the world, and he said these tires react different. He said it's not that they're not a good tire. He just says they're different, and that has to take some of that confidence away from
it does.
you.
It just, you just don't have the feeling that you want where you know where the front end is or know where the rear tire is and how hard you can push it.
Well, we'll hear from our front runners here in just a bit. We're at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It's a cool day. It's actually starting to feel a little bit cooler, but it looks like the mist might be trying to move away from us a little bit. Either way, Cameron Beaubier is without the fastest here in race number 1.
Today's Superbike race coverage has been sponsored by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Welcome back to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. A look at these results. Cameron Beaubier gets a 10.4 second margin of victory over Lorenzo Zanetti. And just a couple tenths back to Tony Elias, Jake Gagne. They're going to be scratching their heads, go back to some dry settings. And Cameron Peterson in 5th. Let's get right down to winner's circle because Cameron Beaubier is one happy camper.
Well, Greg, so far Cameron Beaubier is 2 for 2 out of these 3 races, and with the next race being the last race in MotoAmerica for the foreseeable future, Cam, what is your hope or what are your expectations going into this afternoon?
Yeah, to be honest, I was pretty nervous going into that race. When it's all wet, it's okay. Like, you kind of know what to expect, just consistent grip. But when it's like half wet, half dry like that, it's pretty sketchy conditions for the riders, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm glad everyone got through it safe. Those first few laps were pretty sketchy, but yeah, I mean, Richard and the team, they dialed in the electronics so well, so I had a really good feel over the wet stuff, and then I was able to ride like normal in the dry stuff, and pretty much the whole track other than the uphill corkscrew and then dropping down and through rainy. So super happy to get another win this weekend for the team, and yeah, big thanks to Alpine Stars and 60 for keeping me safe out there, the man above, and yeah, looking forward to this afternoon. It's going to be a good race. All these guys are getting faster and faster all weekend, so yeah, looking forward to it.
Congrats, Cam. Let's get over to Jamie, who has 2nd place.
And that's Lorenzo Zanetti keeping his podium streak alive, but with limited running time with all of these riders in this competition on the tracks in America, Lorenzo, what has been the key to you being able to find the success?
Honestly, I'm started of the race with a difficult condition on the track. Just try to follow a little bit the camera, but he have a really stronger base. He know the track very well. And I just to try to ride, keep calm, because in some part of the track the track is is wet. So on the first 4 or 5 lap, my final gearing is too long, so lose a lot compared to Yamaha. But when the track is quite better to the end, I'm a little bit faster, so I keep pushing, and just try to take the best rhythm that I can. But I'm so happy. 5 race, 5 podium is unbelievable. Thank you to the team.
He stayed calm and he pushed. Congratulations, Hannah.
Well, it was a battle to the finish between Lorenzo Zanetti and Tony Elias, who took the 3rd spot. Tony, how are you able to balance wanting to beat the guy in front of you, but also being patient enough to still make it to the podium?
It's very difficult race, tricky conditions. At the beginning, I was kind of patient and receiving attacks from behind. But it's been difficult. We just went to the race with the wet setup with the slicks, and was not bad because the lap time was not good, not too good, not too bad. But maybe I needed a little bit more stronger front, stronger rear, to attack a little bit more, to be a little bit more faster, to have more pace. But that's what I had, and that's what I fight. I passed Cameron and not Beaubier, Cameron Peterson, then Gagne, and in the last moment I arrived to Lorenzo, but was too late. Anyway, I'm really happy. I did a great comeback, good race, good overtakes, podium, so perfect for these conditions. We cannot ask for more.
Congratulations, Tony Elias.
Thanks to my team.
Beaubier celebrating the spoils of his 15th victory of the season. He's got one more race left in MotoAmerica, but here was the penultimate race in MotoAmerica. And the highlights, Jason.
Yeah, and once again, Cam gets out to that dream start that he needed to do, so he could really set sail. And the hardest part about being in those conditions is being the first one to him. Unfortunately for Jeremy Coffey, he got onto the white paint coming out of turn 3 or going into turn 3, and you can see there Cam got on the paint on the exit of turn 11, got the bike a little bit sideways. That's going to be from some of the weather that we had. His curbings weren't ridden on or any of that, so that's going to cause some problems. Tony Elias started to march through the field. He was able to go by Cam Peterson up in the corkscrew, did the same thing a few laps later to Jake Gagne. He would continue to chase down Lorenzo Zanetti, but wasn't quite able to get there. But this guy was out 11, 12 seconds out in front, Greg. He didn't care about the battle behind him. Another win for Cameron Beaubier.
Conditions were stressful. Cameron Beaubier concerned about it at the beginning, but when the checkered flag flew, another one in the books for Cameron Beaubier. Your championship point standings as Beaubier wrapped up his 5th #1 plate a couple races ago. Jake Gagne solidly in 2nd place with Bobby Fong in 3rd. More coming at you from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, including something called King of the Baggers. What's that, you say? Well, stick around, you'll find out. Welcome back to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca and the Geico Motorcycle MotoAmerica Superbike Speed Fest at Monterey. Look at the famous, well, that's not the corkscrew, but that's the hill leading up to the corkscrew, Jason. And there was going to be all kinds of exciting things that were happening here this weekend before we found out we weren't going to have fans, including a hill climb up to the corkscrew. But we just had HONOS Superbike race number 2, and it was a really weird race in terms of the conditions. So any predictions now looking at what we just saw for this afternoon's race that's coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern?
Well, everybody that made changes overnight were able to at least go out and test them a little bit. Had this race been 1 hour earlier, it would have been a completely different situation because the track was actually really wet then. So anybody that made changes now can either decide if they worked and continue to go further or not. So they got one more shot at trying to dethrone Cameron.
Yeah, and this is the Speed Fest at Monterey, like I mentioned before. And so we had a chance to see something unique that MotoAmerica brought to the table. This is a drag specialty, King of the Baggers. And yes, your eyes don't deceive you. These are bagger motorcycles that were made into race trim. And Jason, they got to race, and there were some pretty big names in this one.
I think that's the thing that was kind of fun to watch, is we've seen Tyler O'Hara in the past and he was able to win this race yesterday over the 79 bike there on your screen. Hayden Gillum, who we saw racing here last year. Ben Bostrom was here. There was a number of different guys that we've seen from our past as well. But Tyler O'Hara is going to go down in the history books as the first guy as the king of the baggers.
Yeah, and rumor has it that there might be 3 of these races next season.
Are you doing
scattered around? Am I doing it?
We need to get you a bike. I think we need to get Greg a bike.
Jason Pridmore written all over it. So Cameron Beaubier gets another win under his belt, his 15th of the season. We're going to be back at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. local time for our final HONOS Superbike race. Can Cameron Beaubier match Josh Hayes' 16 wins in one season? It would be incredible. You don't want to miss the race action. It'll be happening right here on FS2. For Hannah Lopa, Jamie Howe, and Jason Pridmore, I'm Greg White.